Hey guys, how you doing you all? In this video we are going to see part 1 of What If Deku Was Green Lantern. And please do check out story named Guiding Light by BonesBoy15. And I have Patreon page where I make adult and uncensored version. Latest post is about Deku got Starfire's fresh kitty, so if you are an adult then do check out. And make sure to leave a like, share and subscribe. Let's get into the video. Not all men are created equal. This was a truth known by many, realized by all at some point in time. For one boy from Earth it was a truth unveiled at a young age when he was told by his primary physician that he was quirkless. Just give up kid, you will never have a quirk. For those unaware, a quirk is an inherent power that developed within humanity's genetic code and comes to reveal itself around the age of 4. The term started to get used by humanity in the midst of the 23rd century to describe the strange form of hyper-evolution the species had gone through. Through this came a slew of new sociological issues, not limited to, but most shown by, the influx of crime across the planet. Power corrupts, after all. However, for every 10 proofs of this concept, there was one exception to balance them out. As legislation across the globe began to restrict the masses and more began to abuse their quirks in spite of government's actions or to try and advance their own social standing through nefarious actions, a solitary few rose up to stand against them. These individuals were technically vigilantes, but slowly, they became known as heroes. Oh honey. I'm so sorry. Heroes' actions were praised across the planet, but comments on the side of legality caused an issue for governments worldwide as more people began to lose faith in them until the United States of America signed the Heroes Initiative Accord into law. Select heroes that had been recognized by the United States government were deputized and became official government agents. They had salaries, healthcare, and, if requested, government security on their side. Their civilian identity was kept secret and their popularity skyrocketed. This trend followed across the world, more governments adjusted the legislation to fit their liking. Japan was among the last to adopt it. Eventually, heroism was turned from a voluntary duty into a celebratory career. Children with promising quirks were encouraged to go into heroism, promises of fame and fortune began to, in the opinion of some, pollute the industry. Heroes cared more about appearances than service, the government cared more about control than their citizens' safety, and civilians cared more about villain apprehension over disaster recovery. Quirks, especially those that were considered flashy and powerful, began to dominate the culture and poison the minds of the masses. You're nothing but a worthless quirkless nerd. A stupid little pebble. A Deku shrub that needs to be pulled out. In another world, the aforementioned boy would gain the greatest hero's attention. He would become the successor of All Might. The ninth wielder of One for All. The symbol of peace. See, can someone quirkless become a hero like you? This is not that world. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is no. I don't think you can be a hero without a quirk. In this world, that very boy would find something that rivaled quirks. An object of alien make that could be considered the strongest weapon in the known universe. A power condensed into a ring, not unlike one that would be placed upon a finger. In this world, his name will join the ranks of Earth's greatest heroes. He will prove himself in the battle for Oa. He will become known as the Emerald Knight. He will lead the Green Lantern Corps to a new age. In brightest day, in blackest night, no evil will escape our sight. But before any of that can happen, first a boy has to overcome the greatest challenge yet. High school. Red shoes stamped down upon the stairwell, cautious and heavy, as if allowing gravity to do most of the work for the wearer. A twig of a boy with mossy curly hair stared ahead at nothing. His equally green eyes were vacant as he made his descent down the stairwell of the building he'd been left on. Words of his idol echoed in his head. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is no. I don't think you can be a hero without a quirk. Izuku Midoriya wasn't an idiot. He knew it was rough for all sorts of people depending on their situation. His life wasn't terrible, he had a very dutiful mom that loved him. Oh, honey. I'm so sorry. He had a childhood friend he could count on to be in his life for years to come. If you really want a quirk, why don't you try taking a swan dive off of the roof and hope for one in the next life? And he had even been lucky enough to meet All Might, the greatest hero in the entire world. I'm sorry, but it's just too dangerous. You need to be a little more realistic. So then, why? Why couldn't life just give him a break? Why did he bother to push through and hope for something to happen? You could always go for a safer job, like a policeman. I know plenty of police officers. Izuku stopped on the top of the second-level stairwell. His eyes, still glazed over, now rimmed with the beginnings of tears that threatened to spill over. His hands balled into tight fists and his knuckles threatened to burst through his skin. They all I ever wanted. The tracks of tears burned on his cheeks and droplets pattered to the ground. The laughter of his peers echoed in his head. The chiding of his teachers rang in his ears. His stomach dropped as his hero's words repeated like a broken record. His heart squeezed at his mother's apology did the same, as if she were at fault for his condition. W was for someone for anyone to believe in me. Finally, after Izuku managed to wipe away the tears, he strode out of the building. An explosion sounded somewhere behind him and he instinctively turned to investigate, old habits and all that. He stopped himself. I'm sorry, but it's just too dangerous. Right. Izuku frowned and his head dipped forward. He spun on the ball of his foot and resumed his trek home. He was relieved and dismayed that his apartment complex wasn't too far from the thriving metropolis of Mustafa. Relieved, because he was tired, utterly drained in all aspects of life from everything that had happened to him today. Dismayed, because he wasn't ready to go home and lie to his mother again. Oh honey. I'm so sorry. I didn't blame you, Mom. I wanted assurance. I wanted support. Izuku sniffed and closed his eyes. The burn of unshed tears made him bite his lip. No, see, come on. That's enough. He needed to clear his head before he went home. He needed to get away from people in case he started crying again. His chin tucked into his chest, Izuku headed for Takoba Municipal Beach Park, a beachfront that was once frequented by people until the increasing clutter of trash started to drive people away. Now it was a gathering ground for garbage and other unwanted objects. He meandered through the trash heap, surprised by the paths that were present. Eventually, he came to a stop at the edge of the water. The ocean lapped at his toes and Izuku slumped down to his rump, uncaring for the sand that clung to his uniform. He rested his arms atop his knees and his chin atop them as he stared at the falling sun. I could be a hero. He mumbled. I just need someone to agree with me. Something drifted in from the ocean to rest at his side. It was heavy, it was solid, and, most importantly, it wasn't a fish. Huh? What are you? Izuku grabbed the object and immediately regretted it. Whatever it was covered in some kind of gunk. It reminded him of the sludge villain that had almost killed him, and his breathing became erratic. He jammed the object into the spume and started rinsing his hands, fighting back the fear of death that had threatened to take hold of him. The sludge-covered object gave off a bright green glow. The muck obscuring it blasted off, and Izuku was knocked to the side. He looked at the object and stared. It was a lantern, a train conductor's lantern, like something out of a museum. Only instead of rusted and broken, this one was pristine and glowing. Oh, and it was green. And its light was green. The green lantern. The cone of light emerged from the lantern and shone right in Izuku's face. He squinted and shielded his face, the light nearly blinding, but at the same time, comforting. Something started to emerge from the lantern. It was small. It was circular. It was a ring. Izuku marveled at the floating ring, the glow that had encompassed him vanished along with the lantern and reached out to touch it. The second he made contact, he jumped back with a yelp. The ring spoke to him. Izuku Midoriya. It knew his name. How did the ring know his name? Was it sentient? Was it a quirk? How could a ring have a quirk? Was it some kind of support equipment for a telepathic hero? You have the ability to overcome great fear. Izuku's mumbling stopped. Him? Overcome fear? Did it really know who it was talking to? Before he could correct what was obviously a mistake, the ring flew to his right hand and slipped onto his middle finger. It tightened and shrank, securing itself as a pulse of something echoed through his body. The ring said something else that almost broke his brain. Welcome to the Green Lantern Corps huh? Izuku looked flummoxed at the ring that was now on his right hand. A sphere of green light encased him, swaddled him in a protective manner. YWH what's going on? You have been chosen, Izuku Midoriya. Now you are to be brought before the Guardians of the Universe. Oh, well, that explained a lot. Wait. Guardians. Of the Universe. Did that mean that aliens exist? He squeaked. Yes. The answer was the last he would receive on Earth for a good long while, for in the next second, he found himself bracing against the sphere as it shot into orbit. Reasonably, Izuku screamed. Tears fell anew, but these weren't caused by emotional, physical and mental exhaustion. No, they were tears of reasonable distress. For the reaction he had was just that. Reasonable. He was proud that he didn't wet himself in sheer panic. He may have passed out when he shot past Neptune. Hatsume was many things. The next great genius of her era, the queen of gadgets, and the future CEO of Hatsume Industries. On top of that, she was a practitioner of practicality, meaning, she would not waste money when there was a literal beach of resources at her fingertips for her constructive needs. She scavenged and hunted for materials there whenever she had free time. Which was a lot of days after she tested out of middle school that year in all subjects save for one darn English, always making things more difficult than it needed to be. She blamed the British Empire for her current situation. The almost professional baby maker looked up at the sky when she heard a scream just in time to see a green ball of light fly up. She took a picture of it with her phone and prepared to go back to scavenging when she caught sight of something in the orb. A dark speck that looked far too large to be a simple satellite core. Zoom did as she baited in an effort to determine what the speck was, but before her eyes could focus, the sphere disappeared far out of her range of sight. Well, that wasn't a bird, nor a plane. So, aliens. Experimental tech. She asked aloud before ultimately she shrugged it off. She'd gotten a picture of it, she'd put it on the internet and let the tinfoil hats debate over it for giggles. The girl had to get her amusement somehow. When Izuku awoke, he was staring up at a sky filled with various types of green colors. He blinked once, twice, before he scrambled to his feet and felt his jaw drop. The world he was on could be called nothing other than alien. Well, that or green. Buildings, rocks, and the mists around it were all hues and shades of green that made him stare in confused wonder. He felt his breath leave him, utterly awed by the fantastical and futuristic civilization filled with flying cars, spaceships and even glowing people that were flying about casually. The last one he could get, flight was a 1 out of 10 quirk back home. Yet, everyone here seemed to be doing it. Is this a planet of flying quirks? He wondered aloud. Aha! Welcome, young cadet, to Oa. Huh? Wah? Izuku looked toward the speaker. Instead of a tall green person he saw nothing. Down here. Izuku looked down. It was a squirrel. A large squirrel. A large squirrel that stood up to his waist at full height. A large squirrel that stood up to his waist at full height and was wearing a green and black outfit that looked like a hero costume. Excuse me, cadet. You're staring. The squirrel spoke. It sounded a little concerned. What? Oh, I'm sorry. He said. He blinked and shook his head. Are you? A quirk squirrel, mister? Like Mr. Principal? I mean, Nedzu. Did you get abducted, too? Is this the effects of a mental quirk or am I really on an alien planet? Slow down, my goodness. The squirrel waved its paws at him with a laugh. Universal translator or not, I need to be able to keep up with your words in order to understand them. Oh, I'm sorry. Izuku shrank back, face burning hot in embarrassment. It's fine, cadet, just. Let me answer your questions, The squirrel smiled. Maybe. He pulled himself from his rambling thoughts as the sentient animal continued. Never heard the term nor the fellow whom you speak of. I am Ulvenian, from Ulven. Though he paused, a green-hued holoscreen projected from his ring and he tapped on it. Izuku saw a mirrored image of his face and a few squiggles and shapes he couldn't read backwards but knew to be something akin to a language called Interlac. Yes, I see. Given that you came from Earth I can see why my appearance may befuddle you. The screen vanished with a blip and the squirrel looked at him once more. Apologies, cadet, I should introduce myself. I am Green Lantern CH_PP_ND_LTR_NK_TH. You can just call me CH_P and I welcome you, once more, to Oa. Oh. Izuku stared at the talking squirrel. Information flooded into his head. Without any effort on his part, he now knew the large squirrel's CH_P sans, preferred pronouns, language, and the location of his homeworld. Still, something eluded him. And what is Oa? What is Oa? My oh my. I forget how young your people are. CH_P tittered. Oa is the seat of power for the Green Lantern Corps. The peacekeepers of the universe. The peacekeepers? Why you mean like? Izuku couldn't believe what he was hearing. Like heroes. Well, yes. I guess we could be considered heroes to those we save. CH_P chuckled before he leaned in conspiratorially and covered the side of his mouth with his paw. I, myself, saved a planet from rogue manhunters once or twice. Planet. Not a neighborhood, or city, or even country. But planets. Even All Might couldn't save a planet. No one back home could. The green-haired youth looked at the ring on his hand, a sense of awe rushing through him. See, could I be a hero? CH_P cocked his head, his eyes gleaming with approval, before he laughed. Izuku's hopes started to fall. Another person that wouldn't believe in him, he shouldn't have been surprised. He really was just a worthless Gosh golly, cadet. The guff-rod word snapped Izuku from his self-depreciative spiral. You already are if that ring on your digit picked you to help defend the universe. All you have to do is learn what you have to learn. Izuku's vision went hazy as fat tears dribbled down his cheeks. He lifted his ringed hand close to his chest and grabbed at it as if that would abate the sudden and crushing relief that filled him. Sobs escaped him as he dropped to his knees and shamelessly bawled his eyes out. He gave the worried squirrel a big, yet brief hug. After a reassuring pat on the back, he pulled away with a watery smile and he said 2 words while he wiped his eyes. Thank, why you? Before immediately following with, sorry. Not a problem, cadet. CH_P smiled understandably at him. He clapped his hands together and then grabbed Izuku's to tug him along onto a glowing green path that emerged from his ring. Now, come. Come come come. The Guardians await you. Izuku looked around in wonder and awe as he neared the center hub of the planet. A large platform was set at the base of a massive lantern-shaped structure. Settled above the platform was a half-circle of chairs that looked down at the center. Seated in the chairs were more aliens, but these all shared the same appearance. They were all blue-skinned and short with large heads and white hair, if any hair was present. Ah. The sound was one of acknowledgement, and all 8 of the little figures looked down at Izuku and his guide. Thank you, CH''P. You may return to your sector for your patrol. Of course, Guardians. CH''P. Sen nodded before he looked up at the now nervous Izuku. CH''P. Sen was leaving. To patrol a sector, did that mean he had to face the Guardians alone? As if sensing his distress, CH''P. Sen turned to him and smiled. Good luck, cadet. Remember, the ring chose you for a reason. The green light outlined his form and he flew off. Izuku blinked and looked down at his ring. Would he learn how to fly? Without a quirk? Was that even possible? Izuku Midoriya of Earth. The voice was deep, old, and carried without rising. The address had Izuku snap to attention. He looked up at the speaker. I am Appa, speaker of the Guardians of the Universe. You are a potential recruit, the ring you have has been lost for centuries. I'm sorry. Izuku gulped. He could feel his heart beating, like a gong in his ears. He swallowed his nerves and did his best to stop his knees from knocking. Am I going to be a Green Lantern? That remains to be seen. The words caused his anxiety to go from a calm, nervous "this is fine, I am okay," 0, to "oh god, I'm gonna die," 6 trillion, in a millisecond. Is everything alright, Izuku Midoriya? Another of the Guardians asked. His voice was similar to the speaker's, but it was more soothing, calm, and concerned. Izuku liked that Guardian. Sorry, sirs, just a little, overwhelmed to learn that aliens are real. Understandable. Appa gave a pointed look to the other Guardian. Exchanging looks, that was never a good thing. I suppose it would take time for a non-interstellar species to adjust. Regardless, the ring sees a quality in you that made you eligible for this position. We will question you, a simple evaluation that will determine whether or not you will be eligible to join our corps. Oh. A thought hit Izuku like an isekai truck. Asa-san, before we begin, can I ask a question? Appa looked around to survey the other Guardians, and they seemed to concur when he nodded. As if to say, go ahead. What about my family? I think my mother may be worried if I'm not home for dinner. How old are you, Izuku Midoriya? Appa pursed his lips. F-14, sir. And thus, pandemonium ensued amongst the Guardians. How did this happen? We had an age restriction in place for a reason. Not during the Delantic era. We removed the restriction in order to draft recruits after the catastrophe of Hemiota 7 at the time. We agreed to reinstall it once the Corps had a proper number to oversee all of the sectors. We're still short a good 7 dozen. But this Earthman is a child. Hal Jordan was one thing, but… Hal Jordan? Izuku repeated. It sounded English, possibly American. And Izuku, who was an All Might fanboy to the core despite the man's differing beliefs, knew a lot about American history. The name Jordan sounded vaguely important. Who's he? The Guardians stopped arguing and looked down at him. They stared for a long while before the other Guardian that had spoken before spoke again. Hal Jordan, he said, was among the greatest of our corps. An Earthman, like you, and a hero to many across the universe. He stepped down a long time ago when issues in his homeland arose that he felt he was needed to serve. Ganthet? Appa gave the other Guardian, Ganthet, a warning scowl. He looked back at Izuku. Tells us, Izuku Midoriya, has there been another global conflict on Earth since the Darkseid incursion? The what incursion? Izuku asked, suddenly feeling very small. It occurred to him that this group of aliens called themselves Guardians of the Universe. As in, they claimed to supervise the entire universe. Not just a galaxy, like the Milky Way, but any and all other galaxies that reside within the known universe. Possibly even the unknown regions of the universe. What about the Reach's attempted invasion? I don't. What of the Black Hand? Surely, you know of him. Appa gave him a hard stare with this press. Izuku swallowed and his lips trembled. And no, I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. He withdrew from the Guardians and practically crumpled to the ground, arms wrapped around himself as panic set in. It felt like his heart was going to explode. He shuddered in shaky breaths and fought back the burning tears that threatened to spill over. I think that's enough questions. Ganthet spoke before Appa could probe him again. He smiled at his fellow Guardian. He is still young, after all. Who are we to judge him for still growing in body and in mind? All the more reason to take his ring back and send him home. Another Guardian grumbled. No, Drowl, Ganthet is correct. Appa lifted his hand. A green light enveloped him and he floated down to hover in front of Izuku. His head was a lot bigger up close, but he was also a lot smaller, just barely larger than P-san. Izuku Midoriya, you're young, so I will offer you this choice. We can reclaim the ring on your finger and send you home. I don't think you can be a hero without a quirk. Izuku gulped and cradled his right hand in his left, almost as if trying to hide the ring from the guardian. P-san told him he could be a hero with the ring. He wanted to be a hero, so badly. Alia tilted his head and offered him his hand. Do you wish to go through the trials of the Green Lantern Corps? Do you want to join us? You'll always be a worthless quirkless nerd. Izuku grit his teeth and closed his eyes. I know plenty of police officers and they're just as heroic as I am. Resolve hardened in his chest and his ring hummed as he settled on his answer. He took a deep breath and opened his eyes to meet Alia's. Ever since I was small, all I've ever wanted was to be a hero. I've wanted to save anyone and everyone I can with a smile on my face. My friends and even my family told me it was impossible. But P-san told me that's what you are, that a Green Lantern is a hero. He pressed on before Alia could speak. He took the Guardian's hand in a firm shake. I want to be a hero. I want to be a Green Lantern. Green Lanterns are not heroes. Drowl muttered from where he and the other Guardians stood upon the overlook. He eyed the new cadet, the young Earthman, warily. The boy's dreams cloud his judgment. Do they? Ganthid asked, smiling. Yes. Lanterns are not heroes in the context of what the boy wishes. If you say so. Yet, Hal Jordan was a great hero, no. Spare us your sentimentality for the dead and dusted. Your ideals will destroy this iteration of the Corps, Ganthid. That would be the 10,657th time you've claimed that. I've yet to see proof of such claims. I will have no part of this. When that child breaks, when he dies in the midst of duty, his blood or that which he spills will be on your hands. In such an event were to occur, I will do as I always have and carry on with firm belief. May wasn't one to deep dive into the realm of conspiracy theories, but that was due more to the culture of the world around her. Most cryptids or myths could be debunked by quirks. Sure, she listened to the occasional quirk or cryptid podcaster show when she was working on her babies, but they generally acted as white noise, something to occupy her subconscious while she was busy making babies. As was the case now. A week ago, she'd posted her picture for laughs, even captioned it alien green ball in the sky. Unfortunately, her picture kept getting pinged and alerts constantly bombarded her phone. It happened enough to cause an unnecessary distraction from her passion. She went to pull the picture down to rid herself of the irritants, but stopped after she skimmed the comments. May made a slight miscalculation. She hadn't thought several others would have gotten the same photo as she had from different prefectures and posted the pictures online. If she had, she wouldn't have posted her picture. Because now, rather than just the tinfoil hat wearing mooks getting obsessed with the photo and taking it apart for the slightest hint of quirk or digital alteration, the whole internet was going crazy. Well, more so than it usually did. May, never one to do anything half-baked, clicked on the link to H4MR telescope stream that happened a week prior. The same time she posted her photo. In the footage, the scientists that were running it had followed the emerald solar flare with excitement and then shock. The green ball went past the moon. Then, it skimmed the surface of the sun. It shot past Neptune and swerved around Pluto before it vanished beyond the scope of humanity's observation. The media went wild. Many heroes were asked about their preparation for a possible invasion. May watched those interviews eagerly, taking notes on possible babies she could make and sell in the event such a thing occurred. Then, only 2 days into her dive, she started to hit dead ends. Any conversation on the green sphere was stopped and any posts about were locked by admins or admin bots within seconds. Probably an attempt by the world governments to put a lid on it. Lame, but hey, it's the government. What you gonna do? Normally, May would scoff and try to bypass these restrictions, but her mom had grounded her for a month, the last time the office of the Prime Minister called her while she was at work. May was not going to spend a month locked out of her workshop again. So, with her latest quest to stay ahead of the competition temporarily hindered, she returned to doing what mattered. Making babies. At the moment, May was polishing the details of her 12th baby idea to send to a K for her support course entrance portfolio. Yeah, the school's entry form stated that they only required 3 support gear blueprints, papers on each in use, materials, etc., blah, 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 but that was ridiculous. Only sending 3 plans was too restricting, clearly not enough to give an accurate display of her brilliance. She had too many babies that deserved attention. In the back of her mind, May wondered if the green sphere would come back. For now, she focused on her preparation to enter a K support course. Blissfully unaware of life on his homeworld still going on, Izuku stood on a large dark green rock formation just outside of the Guardian Citadel. He'd been standing out here for a few hours, led out here by Apollyon and left alone to wait. Before he could even consider that he was being made a fool of, a thump landed nearby and kicked up dust. Then a voice boomed into existence. "Alright. Listen up, you poozer." What strode out of the smoke of its impact made Izuku's jaw drop. The speaker was massive, like All Might big with matching muscles. He looked like a very pink boar-like being with an underbite. He sounded like he came from the United States, if any of his mom's soap operas were right. "The name's Kilowog and I'm gonna turn you into a Green Lantern." "Why yes, see. I didn't say you could talk." Kilowog snarled over his words. His red eyes raked over Izuku and narrowed. "And what the hell are you wearing? Get in uniform." I don't." "Ugh, white shields." Kilowog rubbed his head. "You really are the worst kind of poozer. I'm only gonna do this once, so pay attention." Izuku kept his eyes open and tried so very hard not to think about anything other than what Kilowog was doing. Kilowog's ring pressed into his chest, and his ring flared. Izuku jumped and looked at himself as something spread over his clothes to envelop him. The uniform that formed wasn't too tight or constrictive, but it did ride up in a few places. "There, now you're presentable." Hawa. "The ring, poozer." "The ring made it." Kilowog growled. "Now, straighten up." Izuku stood as straight as he could, donned in the green and black bodysuit of his new profession. His lanky and not so defined body on clear display. The white circle on his chest took up a concerning amount of real estate, essentially acting as a target board. "You gotta be the sorriest thing I have ever had to deal with standing on this hallowed ground. And we've had space slugs as lanterns." He jabbed his giant finger into the entirety of his white circle. "Now, I got a record. My program produced some of the strongest, most indomitable, and meanest Green Lanterns the Corps has ever seen. So like hell I'm having some tiny, dirt-waking primitive poozer like you ruin that for me. Do you understand?" The instructor roared in his face with such force, Izuku felt like his hair was windswept. Possibly even his face had blown back. "Yes, Kilowog-san. That's Sergeant Kilowog to you, poozer." "Why yes, sir, Sergeant Kilowog, sir." Izuku replied, his voice cracking a little. His face turned red in embarrassment. Why was he embarrassed? There wasn't anyone else here watching. Except for Kilowog. That realization made him even more nervous. The alien flared his nostrils, sneering down at him to the point that Kakin would be green with envy. "Why are you here, poozer?" "D2B agree." "Wrong." The bellow was no quieter than one of Kakin's outbursts and startled Izuku into silence. "You're here because you don't know anything 'bout nothing." The instructor snarled and jabbed his chest with a massive finger that easily made Izuku stumble back a few steps. "And it's my job to make all of the large alien gestured vaguely at him. This into something worth a damn." "Yes sir, Sergeant Kilowog, sir." Izuku shouted as he tried to keep standing in front of the imposing Green Lantern. Kilowog poked him again, much harder this time, and Izuku fell on his rear with an oomph. A moment of silence followed. The hell were the Guardians thinking? His instructor muttered to himself as he drug a four-fingered hand down his face. Then he snarled again. "Why aren't you standing, poozer? Get back on your feet. This ain't break time." Izuku shot to his feet and stood at rigid attention. "First thing you gotta learn is how to stand up straight. To do that, I'm gonna see what your squishy insides are made of. Show me a barrier, poozer." Izuku panicked all the more, how was he supposed to do it? What was he supposed to do? He looked at the ring on his fist. Did he just point his ring out to make a bubble? Was it instinctive before the thought could even finish? A green bubble surrounded his entire body by roughly 3 meters in diameter, not unlike the same shape that brought him to this planet. "Huh, look at that. You don't have slag for brains after all." His instructor mock praised. It would sting if Izuku wasn't used to that sort of treatment. "Now, I'm going to shoot you." What? Did I say you could speak?" "And no sir." "I'm sorry sir." "Damn right you are. Now, like I said, I am going to shoot you. When your barrier breaks, you fail. When you fail, you make a new barrier. A better barrier. When you can survive 10 shots in a row, you pass." Kilowog narrowed his eyes. "We will be out here until you pass." "You Starting now." The flash of green along with the sound of a cannon firing was all the warning Izuku had before he was sent flying across the plateau and landed in a heap. The wind was knocked from his body and he wheezed as he tried to figure out what kind of truck he'd just been hit by. It all rushed back to him after a few blinks and he looked at Kilowog with wide eyes. He'd be out here for a while, wouldn't he? "Well, don't just lay there, poozer. Do it again." Izuku got back to his feet. He held his arm out and made another barrier, but made it thicker. He imagined it being as thick as steel. The barrier lost its transparency and became opaque. He felt the blow again, but rather than a cannon, it was more along the lines of one of Kakin's lower blasts. Better, but don't lose sight of the enemy. Do you even want to survive? If you do, you'll want to think you can. You'll believe you can. Are you so useless that you don't even have the will to live? Deku? You'll always be a worthless quirkless nerd. Izuku scowled as a burning desire to prove them wrong. He was chosen by this ring. He was going to be a hero with it. He needed to do more, but how? Wait, defense. Shield hero. Krusty was a hero known for his amazing defensive quirk. Shield. A defensive quirk that he also made offensive because of how sturdy he could make his shields. How did he resolve that fight in East Nabo again? Izuku asked. He closed his eyes and thought back to that interview. The villain the hero had faced was able to get stronger with each consecutive punch, but Krust's defense held out against the then rookie villain's low stamina. The defense was so strong because he'd made a helix-structured dome like a honeycomb. Multiple layer upon layer of honeycombed microconstructs formed together into a mesh shield. Only solid. As if it were made of titanium. No, titanium was strong, but it had to be stronger than titanium and transparent. His ring flared a brilliant green, burning brighter and brighter as his mind raced. Izuku held his ring out and focused on the barrier in his mind. Stronger than titanium, layered in microfiber by a honeycomb structure, and transparent. The new barrier hadn't been formed for more than a second when his instructor fired upon it again. There was only a hairline fracture to the barrier this time, much to Izuku's astonishment. And just as hope and happiness bubbled up within him, a second shot fired and cracked it even more. The third, and the crack was as wide as one of Izuku's arms. On the fourth shot, Izuku was blown back again, and the construct failed. On your feet, Poozer. Don't let a slim chance of being worthwhile fodder think you're a lantern yet. Again. Izuku got to his feet faster, his eyes burning green as he held up his ring. Yes sir. For the third time in a week, a small, green-haired woman sobbed out a flood in the middle of the Mustafa police station. Oddly enough, it wasn't her quirk that caused such water damage. Detective Tsukauchi gained a sympathetic frown as he watched a woman falter out a request for an update. He was only in the area to help his friend Toshinori Yagi accumulate to the smaller metro compared to his original base of operations in Tokyo. He felt bad for the woman and more so for the boy that was missing. To not only be quirkless, which was hard enough in this world, but to also be abducted. Why? Alice says it was for him to think. It was the kind of mystery that made him want to be a detective. A way that his quirk could be used to save someone, to be an active participant in law enforcement, rather than go into the justice system as most of his family did. His father, a wealthy attorney who represented a very prestigious family, had never agreed with his decision. Maybe, he'd make sure no one on the case was slacking off just because of the kid's condition. He had some favors owed to him by a few officers in internal affairs that could back him up if need be. Heck, maybe Yagi's friend and employer could throw his weight around. He diverted from his path to meet with the chief of the precinct to find out who had the case. Time lost its meaning. He didn't know how long they'd been at this, but he'd managed to make a barrier strong enough to reflect 9 shots several times, but never a 10th. This was attempt 18. It went about as well as the last 17 did. Another 9th blast sent Izuku sprawling across the plateau again. His arms and legs trembled as he tried to get back to his feet. Ultimately, he collapsed, wheezing as his body burned and protested his every movement. His ring flashed with warning, but he paid it no mind. Alright, Poozer. Kilowog's voice broke over the din. Izuku looked up at him to see his instructor lowering his fist and turning away. I'm done with you, for now. Get cleaned up and eat something in the mess. I'm sick o' looking at your worthless body. No. I can. Izuku slipped as he tried to get up again. His ring-bearing hand clawed at the dirt and he slammed his other fist into the ground as he tried to get back to his feet. I can do it. We've been out here for hours, Poozer. I gotta take a dump. Kilowog rolled his eyes. Why you said? We go. You until I block your shots. 10 times. In a row. Izuku threw his instructor's words back at him. He managed to get on his screaming legs. Teeth grit, he straightened up as best he could. I will block 10 shots. So I did. Kilowog nodded and in a quick-draw fashion, turned and fired at him again. Izuku's right arm lifted up and he made a hemisphere interlaced with diamond-strength honeycombed layers. The blast ricocheted off of his shield and made him drop to a knee. He braced his left arm against his throbbing ring-bearing arm's trembling bicep. That was 50% of a full power energy blast. Kilowog deadpanned. As if to emphasize the power behind his most recent shot, the cliff face the blast was redirected. It suddenly exploded and tumbled into the wastes of the planet below. Izuku felt a weight sink into his stomach at the implication. If that had hit him. Can you block 9 more of those, Poozer? Izuku heaved and met Kilowog's eyes. The alien wasn't bullying or belittling him. He was testing him. Testing what, though? What was it that a Green Lantern used that he was testing? You are capable of overcoming great fear. Remember, the ring chose you for a reason. As Sergeant Kilowog. His fists shook as he glared at the alien instructor. His veins flooded with mild indignation and zero hesitation as he declared. I can take 20. Alright, then. Kilowog gave him an ugly smirk. His ring shone bright before two large cannons formed over his shoulders. The ring could make weapons. Was there any limit to what they could do? What was the cost of such constructs, because Izuku felt weaker with each one. With 3 rotary barrels on either of them. They began to spin and hum with power, and Izuku got the idea that they were possibly more than Kilowog's 50%. Do or die, Poozer. Izuku glared into Kilowog's eyes as he willed his specialized barrier into existence and waited for the blast. And waited. And waited. A minute passed and his instructor didn't fire. The behemoth of a lantern crossed his arms over his chest and kept staring at him. Then, as if they'd never been there, the cannons faded away. Congrats, Poozer. You passed the first test, he said simply, as if it wasn't important. To Izuku, it was as if the ground was swept out from under his feet. His confusion gave way to sheer elation, and he let out a wild cheer, tears of joy streaming from his eyes. His shield disappeared. Then he landed on his face. He continued to cheer into the ground until he passed out. Toshinori Yagi stared at his friend Namasa Tsukuachi dumbfounded. I beg your pardon? He asked. I'm a suspect in a missing person case. You were the last person to see the kid alive, Toshinori. The detective rubbed his eyes. He took a deep breath and leaned forward. Look, I know you save a lot of people, but we need to rule you out of any suspicion before some godforsaken reporter catches wind of this case and blows it out of proportion. I'm asking off the record what happened because All Might can't afford to have a scandal before he starts teaching at AK. I don't know what to say. It's off the record. We both know you didn't do anything. Tsukuachi repeated. Just. What happened? Give me the details again. His friend gave him a comical deadpan and shook his head. He opened the file and flipped through some pages. 1 week ago, April 6th, midday, All Might spotted by Hero Watchers Guild Japanese branch, Mustafa Division. Witness, who requested to remain anonymous, recounted seeing All Might's Texas Smash splatter the sludge villain and save Midoriya. Midoriya lost consciousness. Wait, that's the kid that's missing. Toshinori gaped. The day flooded back to his head as if it were only yesterday and not a week ago. Slowly, the events that unfolded on the roof hit him. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is no. I don't think you can be a hero without a quirk. No. Tsukuachi looked up from the report and raised a brow. Yes. He saw me, Toshinori said quietly. And? Like this. Toshinori gestured to his bony self. Tsukuachi blinked once, twice and then looked back at the report. He scanned the lines a few times before his face became intimate with the table. Yagi. He grumbled into the surface before he lifted his head. You let a civilian child see your injured self. In public. Yes. Boo, but not on purpose. He grabbed onto me as I leapt away. Yes, that's in the report. How did he see you like this? Namasa hissed as he gestured at the man. I ran out of time when he asked me a question. Toshinori felt a mounting bile build in his non-existent stomach. This one not from the effects of his last great fight on his body, but from a dark realization. His hands reached up to interlace in his hair and cover his eyes. Oh, God. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is no. I don't think you can be a hero without a quirk. What? Tsukuachi leaned forward. Yagi. What? I messed up. Oh my goodness, he started to cough violently. A hand covered his mouth before the table was splattered with festering blood, while the other grabbed his side. He curled over himself and swore violently in his head, even as he fought to breathe. Let me get a towel. And some water. Tsukuachi urged before he shot out of the room. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is no. I don't think you can be a hero without a quirk. As his coughing fit dwindled, Toshinori leaned against the table. Horror swam in his eyes as his mind flashed back to the broken-hearted expression of the young freckled boy he had failed. He crushed his dreams and left him on a roof. Yes, Toshinori had done so with the best intentions, but the matter stood that he was wrong. There was no reason to destroy a child's dream. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is no. I don't think you can be a hero without a quirk. What have I done? The symbol of peace silently wept, the cause of his tears mistaken to be caused by physical pain. Nana. Forgive me. Anthit smiled as Kilowog walked into the Guardian Citadel. The new cadet was left in the medical bay to check his vitals. The long-lived lantern crossed his arms and looked up at them, ever-present scowl still on his face. Kilowog, what is your assessment of the Earthling? Apollonius asked. Is he worthy of his ring? He's small and weak. Kinda slow. Not as quick on the take as Jordan, Rayner or Cruz were. Not as bright as Stewart or Mullen. He's not as mullish as Gardiner or Boz, neither. Kilowog nodded and then his lips pulled up in a small smirk. But like all of them, he's scrappy. Gotta be a thing. Anything else of note? Yeah. The poozer's got a knack for constructs. Figured them out real fast. He chuckled. Made and refined a barrier that rebounded one of my 90% shots. Anthit's smile grew as the other guardians started to whisper amongst themselves. Drowl's concern stood out, and for good reason. Kilowog's 90% shot was most recently used to destroy a moon, threatening to fall out of orbit into its planet. It cost him most of a day's charge in the ring. It was splintered into debris small enough to burn up in the planet's atmosphere. In only a few hours. Apoleasa clarified. Like I said, he's scrappy. Kilowog shrugged. We'll get back to it in a cycle. Figure the poozer needs the recharge. Do you think he'll take the oath? Ganthid asked, ignoring the scowl Apoleasa sent his way. Kilowog stared at him and snorted. Any of them dirt-crawling poozers ever not. His answer spoke for itself. Anything else? You may go, Kilowog. Apoleasa nodded. The legendary lantern nodded and left the guardians to discuss the newest lantern's place among them. A month. An oddly long, grueling and utterly exhausting month had gone by. Izuku had learned so much about combat and had quickly gone through an exponential growth. It had nearly brought him to his breaking point. Yet, with each push, he felt his body grow stronger. Bolder. Better than what he was before. He wasn't as much of a scrawny teenager, either. Don't misunderstand, he was still short, but one that was, well, he looked like a gym jock. Or, at least, a budding ace swimmer. Not important. Sergeant Kilowog, who was also apparently a physicist, talk about mind-blowing. Had explained that the atmosphere and gravitational pull on Oa was much different from that on Earth, but the power ring passively protected Izuku from harming himself while on it. Along with that conversation, however, he'd made a startling discovery. While he had only been on Oa for a month, he'd been off Earth for nearly a year, 9 months to be exact. The explanation behind the time dilation would have been mind-boggling if he weren't as smart as he was. Of course, that lesson also led him to make another, more disheartening revelation. My mom is going to kill me. Izuku whimpered. Kilowog laughed heartily at his declaration. Though, the instructor commented that it was better to die at a mother's hand than a girlfriend's. Izuku's embarrassment couldn't be described in words. There were stories behind that statement, apparently. Far too many for Izuku to count. Thus was the rich and varied history of the Green Lantern Corps. Still, now Izuku's educational background back home was hindered. Or so he thought. When he voiced his concerns of his homeworld's education to Kilowog during one break in the communal mess hall, the alien rubbed his enormous chin and then took him to the archives. Apparently, many Green Lanterns were doctors, scientists, researchers, teachers, you get the point. There was one, however, who held all of these accolades and acted as head archivist. Salak was. Izuku didn't know the precise words. Brilliant. Yes, obviously. Dutiful. One of the most loyal to the Corps and fit for whatever position the Guardians requested of him. The Sligian was smart and managed to fill the gaps, no matter how little there were, in Izuku's educational requirements. The issue concerning a paper trail, Salak had implied wouldn't be present. When Izuku asked what the archivist had meant, Kilowog had said to him, Salak's been at this nearly as long as I have. He's the go-to guy when it comes to universal knowledge next to the Guardians themselves. If you want to learn anything. You live, breathe and eat what Salak says. You need to know what a Florikian beast eats for dinner. Ask Salak. You need to update your educational background on your homeworld. Salak will handle it. So yeah. Salak was amazing. From being the keeper of records, coordinating lanterns and acting as a tested field commander in some of the biggest battles the Corps have faced, Salak had the accolades and more. He was also a good friend of Ch''P-San, judging by a conversation he'd shared with the two during one study session, which only improved Izuku's opinion of the senior lantern. With his training and education finished, it came for him to earn his rank, which led him back to the Guardian Citadel. With all of the Guardians and a good 100 or more lanterns staring at him. Izuku's social anxiety broke through the roof. This is fine. I'm okay. Remember what Salak said to do. Just pretend they're all in their underwear. Izuku thought, sweat dripping down his face in sheer nervousness. He glanced around at the forms of his soon-to-be fellow lanterns and blanched. Oh, no. Some of them are kind of scary in their underwear. Am I xenophobic? No, that can't be, because a few of them are hot. Oh gee gosh, am I sexually attracted to aliens, too? I can't deal with that right now. Izuku Midoriya. Apoleasa's voice stirred him from his spiraling thoughts. Why yes. He snapped to attention even as his voice broke. The hushed snickers he heard from a few lanterns to his left made his cheeks warm. There were a few whispers and coos that made them darken further. Thankfully, Aliasa gave the peanut gallery no attention and instead kept all of his focus on the Earthling. You have passed through basic training. You have educated yourself in the history of the Corps. You have accepted the call. Your body is strong, your mind swift, and your will superabundant. Aliasa paused and let the decree hang. Are you ready to defend the universe? Are you ready to take the Green Lantern's oath? Izuku swallowed thickly. The last few lessons with Kilowog was to hammer in the oath. To memorize it and understand it. He knew it as well as he knew how to spell his name, something Salak had explained could be attributed to the Corps' power rings programming. He straightened up as best he could and met the Guardian's gaze. I'm ready. Damn stutter. He'd be annoyed if his heart wasn't threatening to burst out of his chest. Then raise your ring-bearing hand and recite the words. Aliasa lifted his right hand and Izuku did the same. The speaker of the Guardians lowered his hand and the central power battery behind him shone brightly. Charge your ring, lantern. Izuku looked past the Guardians to rest his eyes on the central power battery. The source of the Corps' power, the non-living host of the embodiment of will. As he stared upon the battery, he felt something stare back at him in approval. Something beyond otherworldly, something that seemed pleased. With his progress, with him, with his presence. He wasn't sure, but he couldn't let his thoughts wander to the strange approval he felt stare back at him. And so, Izuku gave the oath. In brightest day, in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those that worship evil's might, beware my power. Izuku felt tears fall, and his heart swell as the power battery resonated with his ring. Green Lantern's light. The central power battery let off an enormous emerald flare of light before a stream of will-powered light connected to Izuku's ring. It lasted all of a second, but that second felt like an eternity. Ring power. 100%. The lanterns around him cheered and Izuku flushed anew. He cradled his ring to his chest and wiped his eyes with the back of his left hand. The blank white circle that rested in the center of his basic uniform, filled with the Corps' insignia, a simple green lantern made of a circle and two horizontal lines above and below it. To everyone back home, that's all it would mean. To Izuku, it would mean so much more. It meant he finally had someone in his corner. That he had friends, comrades, and even teachers that believed in him. People who trusted him. People that supported him. Now, he could fulfill his dream. Now, Izuku Midoriya could become a hero. Alright, final gear check. Naomasa ordered the rest of the officers in the APC. This would be their fourth raid in 2 weeks. He went over his own protective attire and then looked over at the SQWAT, Special Quirk Weapons and Tactics, team he had with him. He'd gotten to know them quite well since they started making raids on this underground quirk ring. Hard to believe an investigation into a missing kid would uncover a quirk trafficking operation. Naomasa thought incredulously. 9 months this case had been open, and it was only because during the second week when they were following a possible lead, he and Officer Sansa had stumbled across an active abduction in progress. They tracked the abductor to a warehouse in Mai, and from there they uncovered the trafficking operation. Even if that hadn't happened, Naomasa was certain the case would still be open. Toshinori had thrown himself into the case, going far beyond his limit on certain days when it was needed. Even though they'd brought Sir Night-Eye into the fray. With the vigor and zeal to find one kid, All Might was expanding his legacy even further. Tonight, however, Toshinori was needed at a cave for a meeting with the teachers. Instead of the number 1 acting as the supporting hero, Naomasa had both Edge Shot and Crossed as their breachers. Edge Shot would have already breached the stronghold and disabled what weaponry he could. Crossed meanwhile would be their battering ram. Check in, breach team. Naomasa requested, pressing down on the collar of his uniform to activate the comlink. I'm all set, detective. Just give me the go-ahead. Crossed returned. In position. Ready to strike. Edge Shot said. Copy, we're still 2 minutes out. Hang tight. Understood. You got it, true man. Naomasa sighed. He hoped that this raid went smoothly. The last few were guaranteed successes because of Toshinori's presence. Hopefully, the number 6 and number 9 heroes would have the same effect. Warp flight is weird, Izuku thought as he re-entered his home solar system within his sector of space. Now wearing a redesigned lantern suit that was primarily green with black on pouches at his waist, padded spaces near his joints, and sections of his removable cowl that altered his eye's appearance to seem like he had black sclera, Izuku blazed with a trail of emerald flame emulating light. At first when he started to learn to fly with Kilowog, who allowed him to drop a sergeant, he instantly thought of the number 2 hero Hawks. He made dazzling emerald wings and could see how the number 3 hero was so formidable. Though Kilowog had told him it was innovative, he also added. Yarnoth and Agarian, lose the training wheels. Izuku had to learn to fly properly, so he ditched the wings. And while he could easily handle long-distance flights, it was the rapid speed and on-the-spot maneuvers of mid-air combat that he had issues with. So, he reflected on his near-photographic memory for any heroes that could fly by alternative means when another inspiration hit him. The flame hero, Endeavor, used his flames as propulsion for snap quick turns and short thrusts. When he started to use energy bursts like the number 2 hero for his maneuvering, Izuku's reaction time improved drastically. Kilowog was even impressed. Until the cocky 14-year-old flew face first into a mountainside while lost in his rambling admiration for the number 2 hero. That was so embarrassing. Izuku flushed at the memory and smiled upon seeing his homeworld. He slowed to a stop above Mars and just stared at Earth. The beautiful blue marble hovered amidst the blackness of space, peaceful and unperturbed despite the many conflicts that happened on the surface. He used his ring's function to take with what he now knew as a Polaroid camera, thanks to Psylocke's limited access to pre-quirk Earth, courtesy of previous lanterns, even though their files were restricted from his view, a picture of the blue and green gem he called home. Home. Izuku mumbled, rubbing a finger over the picture before he folded it up and put it in his pocket. He looked at the planet once more and smiled a watery smile. I'm going home. But that said, he shot in and re-entered the atmosphere. Of course, being as new as he was to atmospheric re-entry, he miscalculated and did so over North America. We have an unidentified atmospheric entry at Mach 2 over South Dakota. Trajectory shows an eastward flight path toward the capital. A uniformed man said while he stared at a computer terminal. Son of a bitch. Is another Lexcorp satellite coming down? An older man stepped forward, 3 stars on the collar of his shirt and a scar over his left eye. Upon getting a brisk negative he leaned over the seat the reporting tech sat in and stared at the screen. Do we have a visual? As soon as the next Starlab satellite is in position over Des Moines. Time? 3. 2. Visual obtained. The technician blinked and frowned as an image came across his screen. Sir? What am I looking at? The goddamn alien. The general grumbled. He glared at the green speck that passed over Des Moines, Iowa. Dark eyes narrowed. Notify the Pentagon that the lead protocol is in effect, we might have to scramble the guard to evacuate that state. Sir, don't we need the president's approval to do that? What he doesn't know won't hurt him. Now, get America's shield in the air so she can send that alien freak back to where it came from. One would think that entering a planet's atmosphere would be a scary, if not traumatizing experience. Not to mention a hot one. Similar to something people would see in the movies. However, thanks to his power ring, Izuku just coasted down the layers that made up the sky until he was floating between the clouds. He reached out and let one hand drift through a particularly puffy nimbus. So fluffy. A childish giggle came out with his words. Ch' and did say to enjoy the little things while you could. This definitely had to be one of them. Of course, as was the norm, anything Izuku enjoyed doing had to be ruined because he was reality's personal plaything. The shadow rose up and broke through the clouds at least 3 kilometers ahead of him. Izuku squinted at it. That was a big bird. 6 more shadows did the same and flew in formation with the first. That was a flock of big birds. It didn't look like they were going to avoid him. Our ring, perimeter scan, please. Izuku urged his ring. Scanning. Several primitive aircraft detected. Proximity is 2 kilometers and closing at high velocity. Oh, aircraft. That made more sense. It would be extremely rare for multiple large-sized birds making a flock. Are they a threat? Negative. Oh, good, I'll just fly out of their way then. Izuku smiled. It was only polite. He veered to the left to get out of the way. The aircraft adjusted course to keep flying at him. Izuku's brow furrowed. Ring, they're not a threat, right? Affirmative. Then why are they trying to intercept me? The primitive aircraft are not a threat, that does not mean they are not hostile. Oh. Izuku gulped and slowed to a stop. The aircraft got even closer a lot faster. It looked like there was a figure atop the most forward plane. Maybe we can talk this out. The figure started to get clearer and Izuku squinted once more. They were large and well built. It took a few seconds for him to register the familiar build. Is that? Almighty blurted out in surprise. What on earth was he doing on a jet? Why was he wasting his time riding a jet? He could be using his limited 3 hours to do some actual hero work. Then the squadron of aircraft fired missiles. At Izuku. Crust shield. The wide-eyed boy threw his fist forward, his personalized crust-influenced barrier sprung to life and effortlessly absorbed the 36 missiles. Each explosion was significantly larger than what Kakin could produce. Yet not even close to Oa's defensive cannons, which were still not as impressive as Kilowog's strongest attacks. That special demonstration really put his passing of Kilowog's first test into perspective. Ring, can you patch me through to their communications? Complying. Connected. No effect. Repeat, missiles had no effect. Just get me closer to the target, I can take them D. Excuse me, unidentified aircraft. See, can I ask why I am being attacked? Izuku asked. What the who the hell is this? The person you just fired upon without any warning. Izuku frowned as his shield construct was dismissed. Which was very rude if I might add. Shit, it broke our encrypted communications. Hey, guys, is it me, or does that sound like a kid? I'm not a kid. I'm 14, Izuku protested. Well, wait, was he 15 now? He had been off-world for a few months. Yeah, that's a kid. Fold back the talons, people, we got a civvy in the airspace. Sonovovich, did TFX just send us after another unlicensed hero student? And we wasted ammo. Fuck. We just fired $1 billion worth of explosives at a goddamn teenager. Steadfast, boys. We'll straighten this out. A strong feminine voice declared. Kid, you got a Calcin. The what oh? Oh, you mean like a H-hero name right? Izuku felt a bubble of excitement swell inside of him. His chest swelled up in pride as he proclaimed, I am Green Lantern 2814, Green Lantern for short. Fucking TFX sent us after a goddamn kid. I am going to kill someone once we touch down on base. I'll have the eggheads ring the Pentagon. Do you think President Cruz knew about this? If he didn't before, he's going to now. I'll see to it myself. Alright, Green Lantern, follow us back to base and we'll get this all sorted out. The strong female voice assured. The figure atop the head aircraft held its hand out. This airspace will remain clear and safe for our trip. Wait, was that a command? What kind of quirk could pull off that? Well, there was only one way for him to find out. Grinning eagerly at the thought of learning about a new quirk, Izuku followed the 6 jets. Careful enough to keep his distance, he couldn't be too friendly, they had fired at him after all. Catherine Bates was the embodiment of the American dream and kept a cool face throughout the trip back to base. Inside, however, she was swearing like a sailor. Her team had nearly shot down a child wanting to be a hero that was just being dumb while practicing his quirk illegally. They couldn't even threaten to arrest the kid because he damn near died for his trouble. She slapped her cheeks a few times, which stung thanks to her super strength enhancement, but it was deserved. She should have scoped the situation out first. They had terrible intel. Task Force X, or as it was officially known, the Earth Defense Force of the United States military, was a laughingstock because they were the ones supposedly watching out for aliens. Extraterrestrial threats. A joke to the general public across the world. Until one learned about the final crisis event. Only the top 3 heroes of America and the president ever learned of the crisis events. Multiple Earths. Aliens. Dormant gods and creatures of myth. Actual friggin' magic. It all existed. Of course they did, Catherine would have believed that even if she wasn't the USA's #1 hero. Quirks were as fantastical as any of them, so what was the stretch? Now's not the time to dwell on state secrets, Bates. Buck up, get that smile onto All Might levels, and make sure this kid is A-okay. Catherine nodded to herself as she dropped off of Blackbird 1. While her team disembarked their vehicles and cursed out the TFX, Catherine looked up at the child that flew in and came to a stop like he'd been flying for years. She was impressed at his suit's quality and his quirk control as he slowly lowered himself to the ground. She hummed and tried to determine his quirk. Telekinesis. Class 5, maybe. Or is it something else? Why the serial number? Is there more of him? Was he a genetically evolved human? No, there's no company out there that far along with gene or quirk manipulation. Wait, what's that on his chest? Is that the Green Lantern? Cute. She mused aloud. The boy who most certainly could not be 14, he was so tiny. Yet, yes, he was built like a marble statue, but he only reached Catherine's stomach at best. Still, whoever made his costume did him a favor, he was going to be very popular once he debuted. Flushed at her praise before his jaw dropped open. Your star and stripe, oh my gosh. He gushed, looking at her with literal green stars in his eyes. The #1 hero in America. That's me. Catherine smiled at him. Sorry for the rude introduction. Wait, why are you so far away from America? I didn't think you'd come out here unless you were doing another team up with All Might, and wait a minute. He wasn't there. And those are American Blackbirds, those were restricted to domestic defense a few years ago. That means oh, no. Did I come into American airspace? Oh. Oh, no. No. I entered the country illegally. I'm a criminal, he wailed in anguish. Oh, God, no one could be that adorable while in costume. Especially if they weren't intentionally a child-friendly hero. Not even a day since I took my oath and I broke it. He fell to his hands and knees, a cloud of depression looming over him. My career as a peacekeeper over before it even started. Sergeant, Sensei, Guardians, forgive me. Now that was just depressing. Time to fix that. Okay, pity party over, Lantern. She clapped her hands loudly to get his attention. Once he was looking at her again, she put her hands on her hips. First, on behalf of the American government, I want to apologize for the unsanctioned attack on you. We got reports about something entering the atmosphere around the area you were in and figured that the glowing green speck was something unfriendly. Not the most traditional American greeting, so sorry about that. Second. Oh, no, that was me. The boy, Green Lantern, lifted his hand. Catherine felt her next words on responsibility and proper quirk experimentation in appropriate locations die on her lips. You entered from the atmosphere. Yeah, Ch''P Cent said that atmospheric entry the first time is scary, but it wasn't so bad. It was actually pretty pleasant. Are you an alien? She had to ask, protocol, and her own curiosity demanded so. No. The boy tilted his head. I'm a Japanese national. Born and raised in Mistafu, Japan. Catherine had two things to take away from that reveal. First, thank God this kid was human. Aliens weren't allowed to be this friendly and cute, that's just not fair. Second, oh shit, they totally could have just accidentally started a war. I am going to have General Wayne in front of a tribunal before the end of the day and he will never have another star to his name. I've been in space for the past 9 months. But, it was only a month for me. Time dilation across the universe kind of sucks, he said with an awkward smile. Alright. Catherine rubbed her head before she took a deep breath and nodded. We're going to have to take you in for a debrief. You aren't in trouble, but the situation is bad. Oh. The kid gulped. How bad is bad? We almost accidentally started a war. That's bad. Exactly. Before that, see can I call my mom? Jay just to let her know I'm okay. She must be worried sick. This kid was a sweetheart. Of course, kid. But first, what's your name? Maria Kuzuki, Mizuku Diormia. I mean Green Lantern closed his eyes to take a deep breath. His right hand flashed with a green light before the boy was left in just a pair of tattered pants and school uniform, complete with a tattered yellow school bag. His hair was still green, though now a darker hue, and his eyes equally lost their black sclera. He looked back up at her with a shy smile. Izuku Midoriya. Nice to meet you, Izuku. Catherine said in a tender tone. She gestured towards the hangar. Let's get you some grub and clean clothes before we find you a phone. And that's when his ruffled top fell apart. Why did that? Oh, I'm still wearing the same clothes. The water damage from the sludge villain's attack must have been preserved by the ring until I turned it off. I wonder if that's a passive thing or a subconscious one. There was so much to unpack from that. She was a terrible mother. Inko Midoriya sat alone in the living room and stared at the picture of her baby she held. Her only source of light. Her sweet little Izuku. There's no need to fear, Sebaz, I am here. Oh, my baby. Inko hugged the picture into her chest and started to sob again. Soon she'd have to replace the photo. She'd only managed to muster the nerve to put the memorial together a day ago. The official search was still ongoing, but it had been so long. Inko wasn't known for being able to hold out hope. She subconsciously heard her phone ring and tried to pull herself together. She didn't dare hope for good news. She couldn't hope for good news. Inko couldn't hope at all. Not anymore. Maybe if she could hope, her baby would still be with her. Maybe if she could support his dream, she wouldn't have lost him. If only she'd supported him. If only she said something other than an apology for his condition. It took another hour for her to calm down and listen to the message the unknown number had left. If she was lucky, it was another message from Hisashi. A cursed time zone differences always made it so hard for her to get in touch with him. She needed to tell him Izuku was missing, but always failed to get a word in before she broke down. Izuku's condition may have been Hisashi's last straw, but Inko was the reason their marriage failed. If only she was braver. The voicemail clicked as it turned on. Hi mom. It's me, Izuku B, but you probably figured that out. Just so you know, I'm in America right now and heading home soon. It's been a while, but I love you. I have to go. I'll see you soon. Again, I love you so much and I'm really, really sorry. I'll explain everything once I get home. Love you, mom. Her eyes welled with tears that quickly raced down her cheeks. She missed her son, her baby boy was alive. Calling her. She quickly dialed the phone to call right back. There was no ring, the call failed, as if the number didn't even exist. She played the message again, just to hear his voice. Then she sobbed anew. He sounded so confident. So excited. So full of life. For the first time in almost a year, Inko Midoriya felt hope. Alright, kid. We got you food. We gave you your phone call. Now you have to answer our questions. Said the well-dressed man with dark skin and 3 eyes that was sitting across from Izuku. He'd been introduced as Agent Smith and he worked for the U.S. Heroic Oversight Committee. His quirk was third eye, which gave him the ability to see through animal excrement. The words he used were a lot cruder, and his blunt words made the young lantern go pale in the face. Thankfully, he had someone watching out for him. "Oh, my John." Star and Stripe pinched the bridge of her nose. "He's 15. You said he admitted to illegally entering the US airspace. The atmosphere re-entry. That is still illegal entry with alien technology, Bates." "Yes, but he is more than happy to talk to us about it. Right, Izuku?" Why yes." Izuku nodded furiously and smiled at the agent. "I will happily aid however I can in this investigation." Interrogation. Agent Smith corrected him, which caused his smile to falter again. John, Star and Stripe hissed like an angry puma. Agent Smith glanced at her. "We have a very precarious situation on our hands, Catherine. The first have to do my job to keep your job safe, and I have to do it this way, since you decided that the easy way was morally wrong. I will not allow this country to incarcerate a child. Foreign or not, native of the planet or not, he is a child." Star and Stripe snarled as her fist drove into the metal table between them. "We can do this your way, the right way, or my way. You do not want me to do it my way. Fine, I have other things I have to do today." He looked back at Izuku. "Now, Izuku, was it? You why yes sir. That's me. You claim that you spent the last 9 months off-world on an alien planet. Why yes sir." Agent Smith sounded like he didn't believe Izuku, which was fair. Even with quirks, intergalactic space travel was something considered fanciful for the scientific community. Most were just waiting for the right child to be born capable of something along those lines before they dared try to traverse the infinite unknown that was the universe. He looked at the file in front of him. "While on this alien world, you were given alien technology and brought it back to this planet of ours. To be fair, the technology was already here, before I left. I found it at Agaba Beach back home." To clarify, where is your home? Mustafa, Japan, sir. "And your age, again?" You F14. Well, F15, now, I guess. Oh. I missed my birthday." Izuku frowned. Normally, his mother gave him some of the money his father sent to them and they picked out some hero merch. Usually something All Might related. This year, though. Would he have gotten something All Might related? Right, 15. So, in space with aliens for 9 months. It was only a 1 month, F for me. For the rest of us it was 9, but sure, okay, you trained in space with aliens for 1 month on Aowa. Boa. Agent Smith rubbed the corner of his left eye with his middle finger. He must be tired. Star and Stripe suddenly left a dent in the table with another bang of her fist that made them both jump. "Jesus, Bates. What the?" "Enough antagonizing him, John. He is a child. I will not warn you again. Now show some decency and act your age." "Christ." Agent Smith glared at her before he looked at Izuku. "You swore an oath to a foreign entity, an otherworldly police force, right?" "Why yes." Agent Smith's annoyance fell away and bled into incredulous. "He's not lying. I told you. I thought you were pulling my leg, Bates." Agent Smith pointed at Izuku while he met Star and Stripe's gaze. "A bunch of aliens actually let a 15-year-old kid become a cop. We're supposed to be afraid of them for that." You it's probationary at the moment." Izuku interjected nervously as he fiddled with his ring. "I'm essentially in the reserves until I reach full maturity, but why yes, I'm a member of the Green Lantern Corps. I passed the training and everything, though. My instructor said I was pretty decent for a pre-my-poozer. And that means I'm not, an excrement of a pretender. I think. I dunno, the ring didn't translate it." "So, what you are saying is, all of your power comes from that little gizmo." Agent Smith's eyes focused on his finger. "Why yes." Izuku swallowed. Now came the really uncomfortable part. I'm quirkless." "Holy shit." Star and Stripe put her face in her hands. Both she and Agent Smith looked pale. "I think I'm going to be sick." Izuku hadn't gotten a reaction like that in a decade. He flinched away from the Americans. "Oh, no kid. Not because of that. I don't care that you're quirkless." Star and Stripe moved from her seat to sit beside him and pulled him into a hug. For as large and as strong as she was, the hug was actually really gentle. And it felt really nice for other reasons that weren't important. "Hormones suck. My team and I were sent to take down a foreign invader. We were fully prepared to. God, kid, you really got a terrible deal, huh?" Oh, so she was going to be sick because she was ready to kill him for her country until she realized that it was a misunderstanding. That's so much better than what he thought. I mean, sort of. But not really. Who else can say they're a space cop? Besides the other members of the Corps, I mean. Okay. Wow. Agent Smith said as he used his tie to dab at his now sweaty brow. Wow. Are you or the Green Lantern Corps a threat to the United States of America? I mean, I don't think so. Not unless you guys do something really bad. How bad are we talking? Um, Willful genocide of another species. Planetary enslavement. Start a war with another galaxy. I'm sure there's, other things, but most of the crimes we focus on are based on interplanetary relations or heinous in nature, Izuku said with a shrug. I really want to be a hero though. It's what the Green Lanterns do. Or at least, it's what Hal Jordan did. Did you say Hal Jordan? Agent Smith asked quietly. His eyes, all three of them, were wide. You know about Hal Jordan? Why yes. A lot of his file on OA was redacted, but Salak, one of my instructors, let me look at it. Izuku smiled and looked at his ring. We think this ring was his. Izuku, be honest with me. Star and Stripe held his shoulder and looked him in the eye. Do you know who Hal Jordan was? He was a Green Lantern. Izuku nodded. One of the best. That explains so much. Why so much of his service file in the Pentagon servers was redacted. Agent Smith cut himself off abruptly. He and Star and Stripe shared another look. We need to come up with a cover story. I'll help him practice it before we go back to Japan. Star and Stripe nodded. Did I do something wrong? Izuku fretted. He totally messed up. Typical. He couldn't do anything right. He was just justify. No, kid. It's just. Agent Smith faltered for words before he groaned into his hands. President Jordan was a space cop. You'll have to sign some NDAs with your mother. Star and Stripe smiled, though it felt more like a grimace. And you wanted to be a hero, right? I'm guessing you want to get into a K? Why yes. More than anything. Izuku nodded fervently, eyes sparkling. Well, I know a few people. How would you like a recommendation? Izuku felt his world tilt. And then his eyes started to water. You would do that? For me? Yeah, kid. Star and Stripe's smile fell and she gave him another hug. He reveled in it. Izuku was getting a hug from the Star and Stripe. Him. The quirkless Midoriya. His ego and hormones needed to boost, don't judge. Before she held him at arm's length again. I can tell that you're gonna be up there with me and All Might one day as one of the best. You might not have a quirk, but you've got the heart of a hero. Izuku started crying again. He wasn't entirely sure when he stopped. All he knew was that he was going to be a hero. Waiting a good distance from the landing strip, Toshinori felt his palms begin to sweat and he coughed into his prepared handkerchief. He stood beside Tsukauchi, who in turn stood beside Inko Midoriya, who was watching the American jetliner come down and lower its landing gear. When Catherine had called him about finding a Japanese boy with green hair out in America, he wept with joy. He hadn't been a complete failure. He could still atone for his callous words. The first two figures off of the plane were members of the Secret Service. Toshinori recognized the ever-present uniform of suits and sunglasses. He coughed into his handkerchief again, a bit shocked as the US ambassador, Amaya Ju, stepped down from the aircraft. She stopped to wave at and smile for the gathered paparazzi. Their presence was inevitable. Especially given that America's #1 hero, Star and Stripe, followed. She ignored the press for the most part, giving them polite smiles and a single wave before she turned back to the jet. Last came the boy of the hour just after her, timid and shrunken in on himself while wearing a blue shirt with a white star on the front, jeans and bright red sneakers. Seeing him in person eased Toshinori's soul tremendously. His eyes welled with tears of relief, joy and hope when Catherine beckoned him down and then escorted him over to them. Izuku. Inko Midoriya broke past the roped-off barricade to embrace her son, and Izuku matched her race, running into her embrace and meeting her hug with one of his own. Mom. The boy cheerfully sobbed and the camera vultures ate it up. Truly, it was like something out of a film. It's Yagi, right? The powerful voice of one Catherine Bates tore Toshinori's eyes away from the scene. He looked up and wow, she was much taller when he wasn't All Might. He smiled at her before he bowed to the hero. Yes, I'm Toshinori Yagi. I represent the Mighty Agency. On behalf of the Mighty Agency and All Might himself, I thank you, Star and Stripe. How typical of him, heh. Probably off saving the day as usual. The woman who idolized him beamed. Ah, that one cut deep. He tried not to let it show. I heard he took the case rather personally. Any reason for that? Well, Toshinori righted himself and rubbed his neck. I think he feels guilty. He'd met the boy the day he vanished and, well, he saved the boy from a villain and dashed off to the next crisis. He probably blames himself for his disappearance. Oh, I see. Catherine looked troubled for a moment before she shook her head. No matter. At least he'll be able to sleep better at night knowing he has an ally on his side. Oh, and I'm sorry, you are. That. Namasa Tsukauchi bowed to her. I was on the boy's case for a while. A while. They pulled me from the case after the 5th month. Must be a relief for you, too. With how hard we were hitting the streets. Yes. In a few weeks, I'm going to put in for some well-earned PTO. So many raids. The detective laughed tiredly. Toshinori watched him a mite worriedly. He shouldn't have mentioned the raids. If Catherine was anything like he was. Raids? Catherine's brow rose up in interest. Yep. There she was. As much of a true hero as All Might hoped he was. Arguably more so now, a bittersweet thought tagged on. Work trafficking operation. Mostly taken care of, but we're still getting reports. Namasa really needed to stop talking. Is that right? Perhaps I can manage to convince the ambassador to approve some joint cooperation. It would be a hard sell. Toshinori shook his head. You know how the politicians get if other national heroes come in and show the locals up. Yes, but I'm rather persuasive when I need to be. Star and Stripe grinned. Besides, I should back up my words before my recommended gets into a K. I'm sorry, what? Do you have an apprentice or something? Toshinori blinked in befuddlement. If Star and Stripe ever had a noteworthy ward or sidekick, it would have made international papers, talk shows she was the second most reliable hero after All Might. Or something. Catherine nodded with a laugh. We haven't known each other long, but the kid is definitely going to be the next household name. Oh? And who might this child be? Tsukauchi asked. Catherine shrugged and looked over her shoulder at the small family reunion. Toshinori's eyes followed her gaze, and then he gaped. No, she couldn't seriously be thinking what he thought she was thinking, did she? He's a little busy becoming Japan's latest media darling. She was. Catherine was going to support a quirkless child and recommend him for a K. In response to that revelation, Toshinori did the only thing he could manage in the moment. He coughed up blood. You what? Inko asked quietly. Her son could not be serious. They'd just gotten home after being detained by the HPSC, who only released them after the American hero Star and Stripe, and how amazing was that? Her baby met Star and Stripe. Told them that she would answer all of their questions. I'm going to be a hero, Mom. He smiled at her, his eyes watering. She felt her heart break all over again. Her poor baby. Star and Stripe is giving me a recommendation to get into a K. Honey, I don't want to. I am mean, what about? My condition. Izuku's smile turned a bit brighter before a green aura coated his form and he floated off of the ground. Inko held her mouth, fresh tears in her eyes upon seeing her boy. He could fly. He had a quirk. He had a quirk. He had a quirk. Izuku? How did Inko faltered for words? How did you get a quirk? If anything had happened to him while he was in America on that note, Inko should check in with Hisashi. If their son was in the United States, he should have known. Right. It's not a quirk. Izuku tore her from her own thoughts as he offered his right hand out when he lowered back down to the ground. A gaudy emerald ring was on his middle finger. This is a power ring. It's very special. It can make you fly. Inko blurted out, utterly astonished by his understatement. It makes me fly. And speak every language in the universe. Strange choice of words. Izuku normally didn't embellish feats of wonder like that, but Inko chalked it up to his trauma. That's still amazing. She gushed. Worry stopped her once more. But if America gave you that ring. They didn't. Izuku quickly alleviated her fears and explained what happened the day he went missing. That he was first attacked by a villain but saved had almost sent her into a panic until he assured her he was fine. He skimmed over the hero that saved him, which given his own new powers Inko understood, and told her how he hadn't found the ring, that it found him. It chose him, her baby, and then whisked him away to another planet halfway across the universe. By the end of his long tale, with holographic recreations to depict others in his story from his power ring that apparently had drafted him into a universe-wide police force, Inko could only do what any mother in her situation would do. She sat down calmly and closed her eyes. No, she didn't faint. She had a very quick, very unwilling power nap. It was different. Inko Midoriya wore her heart on her sleeves, but she did not have a weak constitution. Honest. She still hugged her son as tight and fiercely a mother could when she woke. She wept in joy once more as she realized in relief that her baby was home. That it hadn't been a dream. If he wound up grounded for the rest of his life, well, there wasn't any parent alive that would argue with her decision on that front. Nedzu, the acting principal of Ikei Academy and constant thorn in the Hero Public Safety Committee's side, was smart. That statement was both factual and obvious to anyone in Japan, as well as being the understatement of a lifetime. In fact, it was because of his quirk, high spec, that the statement was so understated. It acted as more than an intelligence booster, it allowed Nedzu to think and manage thoughts at speeds most supercomputers would dream to achieve. It was because of his quirk that he was considered amongst the top 10 most intelligent people in the world. Technically, Nedzu was a former quirked animal experiment, but that is a history no one wants to revisit, lest an unpleasantness be visited upon the revisitor. However, being so smart, it was hard for him to be surprised. When Star and Stripe arrived on the scene with a missing child that had been driving their symbol of peace to his limits and beyond, he'd been suspicious, but not surprised. Nor was he surprised when she arrived at his school, unannounced and hovering outside of his office window. She wasn't the first hero to do that. Heck, she wasn't even the first foreign hero to do that. It was when she pushed a paper for a recommendation student onto his desk that his suspicion turned into surprise. A recommendation for the very same young man she'd returned home. Why was this boy, this child, being pushed toward heroism by the #1 hero of the United States? Why did his paperwork have a quirk listed to be filed in his registry status when he has been diagnosed as quirkless for the better part of his life? The surprise had become a mystery. Nedzu adored mysteries. Already, Nedzu's mind dwelled on what possible experimentation the young man may have been through whilst he was overseas in the home of heroes. What torment had he undergone in order to awaken a possible quirk? The human body could only take so much abuse before it snapped. Snapped, the young man must have. A stone settled in his diminutive stomach if such possible news came out. What madness could follow? Even Nedzu didn't relish that brand of chaos as much of that which he could control. Thankfully, that was only one possibility to the myriad of others. Another possibility was that, like All Might, Star and Stripe's quirk was able to be passed down. A second generational quirk. Possible, but unlikely. A third possibility left the boy as All Might's very own successor, and given his frantic search, that was a very high one. Yet, Mirio still seemed to be the most likely inheritor of One for All, but the boy was stubborn. He wanted to be a hero with his quirk, which was completely understandable, and why Nedzu kept himself recused from the decision. He cared for his students' needs and wants first, before the rest of Japan, as they would be its future protectors. The pillar of peace that All Might and Sir Night-Eye were so insistent on keeping upright would crumble one way or another, and Nedzu knew his students would be the ones to clean up the inevitable collapse. That opened the possibility to the improbable option of powers granted to the boy by way of yesteryear. Things of perceived fiction and the like. Was it possible that his new quirk was caused by delving into the arcane arts? Yes, Nedzu knew that humanity had a love for the fantastic before quirks became reality. Scientists were dreamers that acted to make their dreams reality. Some heroes' quirks bordered the lines of scientifically explainable and not. Regardless of the mysterious quirk's origin story, Mr. Principal examined the papers before him. They were educational tests that were a global standard for elementary and intermediate students, for the most part, but there were also a few tests that would put him on par with some of his third-year students. The boy was clearly intelligent and coherent in every written exam. Further, they were written neatly. A few misspellings here or there in the English portion, but nothing too substantial to warrant a lower grade. He aced all of these tests. He was missing for 9 months. Kid smart. Whatever school he was at before was prejudiced and probably falsified records. Wouldn't be the first time something like that happened. You might want to look into that. Star and Stripe advised. Nedzu met her gaze before he examined her. Tightened fists, forced smile, whatever school district the boy was in before definitely made an enemy. And a foreign one at that. Nedzu was very intrigued by the woman's reaction. I'll be sure to send some of my feelers out for it. We already have one troublesome case to investigate, this just adds to the pile. Oh? It's an active investigation. Need to know basis, sadly. Say no more, I understand. Ah, the beauty of government agency cooperation and NDAs. Star and Stripe smiled at him. When's the exam? He only just got home after being missing for 9 months. I've got a feeling he'll do fine regardless. Kid's built different. His quirk isn't natural, is it? That's neat to know. She smirked back at him. How delightful. It would appear that the American hero did in fact have a bond with the child, a very strong one, given her presence today. Nedzu loved it when humans were so coy and protective of one another. Pack mentality was something he understood very well and could use to his advantage. It was how he forced the HPSC to allow him to become the principal of AK and why he gave them a brief reprieve in their Cold War. Very well, the details, time and locations of the written exam and the practical tests are explained here. Nedzu slid forward a slip of paper and smiled as he rested his chin atop his paws. I cannot wait to see what his power ring quirk is capable of. Take my word for it. It's otherworldly. Nedzu was so excited. Well, Green Bean, you ready to show these chumps what for? Star and Stripe asked as she had a driver bring them both to K. It was time for the recommendation exam. He had already done the written exam a few days prior in a testing center, and furthermore, he managed to get in the top 5 percentile. Once more, he had to give Salak sensei a thank you for the tutoring in the basic subjects. Yes. Thank you for coming with me, Star and Stripe. He bowed his head in thanks, but nearly flew out of his seat when she slapped him on the back. Nonsense. As my recommendee, I'm allowed to come and watch. Plus, you've always got your shiny arsenal with you. She winked and Izuku flushed. Yes, well he had been stuck at the Task Force X base until Star and Stripe got clearance to take him home. He learned a lot about the US military's firearms. He even experimented with making them with his ring. He knew Sergeant Kilowog could make cannons and artillery, so the rookie Green Lantern wanted to try his own hand at it. A decision that made him respect any and every hero that used live firearms in their line of duty. It was very dangerous. No wonder the Guardians called the Rings of Willpower the ultimate weapons. He would have to study up on alien artillery the next time he was on Oa, and in the meantime, would focus on his constructs and light blasts. I think I'll refrain from using those unless I'm fighting against robots or something. I don't want to hurt anyone. I hear you. With your amazing power comes the responsibility to not harm needlessly. Regardless, I know you can lock any opponent down. Star and Stripe shook her head. Your bubbles are crazy. Right, his slight variant of Pro Hero Wash's giant bubble capture technique was the true equalizer. Never was he so glad he learned defense in his training first. He could already imagine using it to save people or protecting other heroes. The sheer applications alone would allow him to keep the peace from even the most devastation of quirks. Though, it could still use some fine-tuning. What if he added a second layer? Ow. Izuku looked up at Star and Stripe as he rubbed the back of his head from where she flicked him. You're muttering again. She chuckled. You gotta keep that brain of yours in check somehow, or else your enemies are gonna know that in order to beat you, all they have to do is demonstrate their quirk so you can spend an hour analyzing it. He let out a sheepish laugh. Remember, try not to overthink. Having a tactical mind is good, but not if you get lost in your own head. Yes ma'am. Izuku gave her a crisp salute. The woman looked pleased and smiled brightly. You sure you don't want to come back stateside and join the Flash track with Star Labs? They're second only to Island when it comes to making support gear and are globally second to AK in terms of hero schools. Izuku spluttered as Star and Stripe blatantly tried to recruit him again. Star Labs was the US government-funded hero school and was considered the peak of the nation's education system. The Flash track program was named after a corrupted file about some pre-dawn of Quirk's hero known as the Flash, and it essentially sped students through the essentials of high school before they were prepped and trained to be heroes that would then serve a minimum of 2 years in the United States military. It was a fantastic program. If you were an American citizen. There were stories online about heroes that tried to return home after going through the Flash track. Not all of them were kind, and those heroes quickly faded into obscurity if they were lucky. Most were not. Sorry, Star and Stripe, he finally stammered out. But I've always wanted to go to AK and be a hero in my home. Ah, geez, I can't even blame you. I wish I could have come here, too. She stage whispered to him. I mean, going to All Might School. You're so damn lucky. Right? It's going to be amazing. I wonder if he'll shoot at us during class though. Izuku pondered. What? Yeah, sometimes when I was training, Sergeant Kilowog would fire at me, so my situational awareness was up to snuff, even if I was reading an archive document. Izuku stared off ahead at the leather seat in front of him, lost in a memory. Salak-sensei always got involved. That sounds extreme. Star and Stripe frowned. Weren't there any other students he had to worry about? No, I was the only student, he said, a haunted look in his eyes. The only poozer. What? I think it means rookie. I dunno, the ring doesn't translate it. Oh, you were the FNG. I get it. What? Never mind. It's not important. Star and Stripe quickly waved it off. Just something the enlisted do every now and then to keep each other sharp. Ma'am? Sir? We're pulling up to a K now. The driver announced through the window. Shall we head into your academia? Star and Strip asked him, a megawatt smile. Izuku could only give her a watery smile back. Alright, maybe we should let you cry first. You have 2 minutes. Izuku would later be proud to admit that he only needed one. Shoto Todoroki only had one goal on his mind. Don't please Endeavor. He would get into AK using only his mother's ice. He would be a hero that only used his mother's ice. He would never be a hero like Endeavor. That was why he had already signed up for the regular entrance exam behind his father's back. This whole recommendation test. He was going to bomb it to spite the man. He passed the mock written exam several times just to see if he could. He wanted to stand on his own merits. He was done taking Endeavor's handouts, as if that would make up for the mess that he made of Shoto's family. Still, he could watch the others taking the test. If, for whatever reason, he failed the regular entrance exam later that month, he would just go into Gen Ed and move up during the sports festival. Honestly, that was tempting, just to piss his father off to unfathomable levels, if only it wouldn't end with him being a semester behind other hero students. Whoa. Hubba hubba. Good thing I'm hungry, because here comes a snack. What the heck was that? Shoto looked around and spotted a girl with green hair that was staring at him with a strange grin on her face. Beside her was an uncomfortable girl that was taller and had her dark hair pulled up in a wild ponytail. Please, Tokage-san, must you be so crass? Yamo? Han. That kind of stick-in-the-mud attitude ain't gonna get you any friends. The green at Tokage Shoto presumed shook her head at the taller girl. I thought being myself got me friends. Yamo asked, confused. It does. But being a wet rag. Kind of the opposite. Tokage pointed at Shoto again. Besides, look at that snack. Walking around all wrapped up like a candy cane, you know you wanna indulge, eh? Please stop elbowing me. Geez, Yamo, I thought you had a funny bone. Here Tokage took hold of her arm and popped it off mid-bicep. She gave the taller girl a toothy grin. You can borrow mine. Hello. Geez. Shoto almost jumped back at the shout that rang in his left ear. He scowled at the cause, a taller boy with short dark hair and a bright smile on his face. Ah, hi. He blinked in surprise. He took another step back. Could they just start these tests so he could get out of here? Hello? Yes. I am Inasa Urashi. It is a pleasure to make your acquaintance. The boy shouted before he bowed so far down his head made contact with the ground. That had to hurt. Right. Shoto decided to do the tried and tested method of ignoring the weird people. It was better for his sanity, given that he was sure it was already damaged if those quizzes he took online had any merit to them. Are you not going to introduce yourself? No. I'm not here to make friends. Shoto glowered at the taller boy. He was loud, tall and obnoxious. This guy reminded him too much of his father. Urashi's smile faltered and his brow furrowed. His voice had lost volume with his next words. You're arrogant. Excuse me? Shoto whirled on the boy and scowled at him. He thought Shoto was arrogant, what? This idiot didn't even know what arrogant was. He should try living 15 years with the number 2 hero. No, I will not. Urashi crossed his arms. This is a recommendation exam for the most prestigious hero school in the world. You should be courteous to the other participants, including myself. We have worked hard to be here. I'm not here by chance. Shoto glanced toward his father and glared at him. He was oblivious, busy glaring at someone coming in from the gates. Your endeavor's recommendation. I see, that makes sense. For the first time in the 40 seconds since they'd started interacting, Urashi got quiet. He crossed his arms as he stared Shoto down. I doubt someone who caught Endeavor's eye will not fail to enter the school. I will not go to a school with someone like him. He did. Did he just? What did you just? A shame. I truly did want to go to UK, but if they accept your type. Excuse me, I must go speak with the test proctor. As swiftly as he was in Shoto's life, he was gone. Shoto resisted the urge to rub his head as he stared at the space the boy previously occupied. The whiplash that jerk had given him was mind-boggling. His old man had done it again, he'd ruined someone else's life. Bastard didn't even need to do anything other than exist. Holy sh Yamo. Yamo, do you see what I see? Am I losing my head? Tokage's sudden outburst was accompanied by her separating her head from her body and frantically juggling it. The outburst also got Shoto to follow her gaze. His jaw almost popped open. Star and Stripe. Yamo's whisper carried across the grounds. America's #1 hero. All Might's supposed secret love child from overseas. And with her. Was that the kid who had been on the news lately? The boy that had been taken by possible Russian traffickers and sold to some predator CEO in America only to be rescued and awaken his quirk in the process. Or so his preferred message boards theorized. Yet it was the top theory, hence it was Shoto's top theory. One question lingered on Shoto's mind. What is he wearing? He thought, looking at the boy's weird skin-tight black and green suit. Shoto didn't even know they could come in with possible costumes. That actually worked great for him. This kid was certainly bound to get through the recommendation tests. He went plus ultra for the practical test. If he didn't make it in, Shoto would eat one of Endeavor's shoes. He might do that anyway, the man didn't deserve the amount of footwear he owned. Strange. That girl with vines on her head had been staring at the TV green boy as he went past her, but suddenly stopped. She tapped her left shoulder with her right hand, then the right shoulder with the same hand, and then her forehead before she brought her right hand down to meet her left hand and fell to her knees. She was saying something as she clasped her hands tightly in front of her, but Shoto couldn't hear it. He'd keep an eye on her all the same. Okay, I'm calling dibs. Yamo, do me a solid, be my wing woman, and do not ruin this for me. Tokage-san said, grinning a wide grin as her eyes landed on the boy. Oh okay. What should I do? Just stand by my side and say nothing. And don't stare. Or do. Honestly, I don't care. I want some cake. I don't know that there is cake. You have much to learn, Yao Mo. Fret not, for I will teach you. Tokage assured Yao Mo, patting her on the shoulder before she casually jogged away. Her arm that was patting Yao Mo remained. Shoto had the feeling that the girl did that a lot. Shoto looked back at the TV green boy who was slowly walking towards them. At face value, the boy was a walking bundle of nerves, but his every step was clearly measured. He must be very confident and sure of himself. He looked like a frightened rabbit, but given he was held overseas in an illicit super soldier program, he could probably jump for the jugular at the drop of a yen. It was like looking at a living contradiction. How strange. Hello, fellow green person. The name Satsuna Tokage. Interesting, now Shoto also knew her name. He could file away his notes about her more accurately. I'm. Shoto watched, his face impassive, but inwardly was impressed. This kid was dedicated to his cover. Stuttering so much to appear even more fidgety and afraid. How did he make his face get so red, though? Ease up, Greenie. It isn't Christmas anymore, you can relax on the holiday theme. Tokage softly laughed at her own joke, her sharp teeth bared in a grin. All you have to do is tell me your name. Izukumi Midoriya. Be pleased to meet you. That was rather surprising. A green-clad hero with a green name. What, did he call himself Green Might, too or something? Note to self, check to see if All Might's aware of his love child from overseas. Shoto mused. If he was right about that, then it was entirely possible thoughts for later. If anything, Tokage's smile grew larger, which was unsurprising. From what he observed, Tokage was a lot like Burnin. She was a smiley sort of person. Strange as it was, Shoto liked Burnin. She didn't help his father train him and often opted to work at the agency while Shoto trained. She didn't try to stop his father's training methods, although to be fair, none of the sidekicks that worked for Endeavor did. Not after the last sidekick tried. Poor Ashhole, he could have gone far with his fire spitter quirk. Now he was stuck working with 6 black ice on an Arctic exploration escort mission. The pettiness of Endeavor was immeasurable, as was his wrath. Midoriya, huh? Looks like you got your color-coded theme down pat. Will all recommendation examinees please approach the field? I repeat, will all recommendation examinees please approach the field? The recommendation exam is about to begin. Todoroki walked over to the placement he was indicated by the large white-haired hero. He didn't know the man, he wasn't among his father's circle. Clearly, though, judging by his red outfit, he was a hero. Oh, already we part. Don't worry, Greenie. I'll watch you if you pass me, and you can return the favor. Tokage said as her waist and legs moved to another space down the line, while her torso hovered in front of Midoriya. Both Midoriya and Yamo stammered. They have similar mannerisms and, despite having a significant height difference, their hair was also close in color. That was a rarity now thanks to quirks. Did they have a possible relation? No, Yamo seemed surprised and unfamiliar with him. Still, it was something to investigate. That can come later. Shoto shook his head. He had a test to bomb. And given how Tokage had just unsettled 2 of his competitors with firm swats on their rears, he would have to try his hardest to fail spectacularly. Izuku knew he had to focus on the practical test, really he did. He had to prove that Star and Stripe hadn't misplaced her faith in him. He needed to show the world that the Green Lantern power ring was in good hands and that the Green Lanterns could be trusted. He wanted to get in on this test and be a hero. Unfortunately, there was one minor setback. Oh me god, oh me god, oh me god. I actually talked to a girl. Izuku's mind spun. An actual human girl that's my age. I said my name. She wanted to know my name. Why did she want to know my name? I mean, I'm nothing special. A sharp whistle broke him out of his thoughts, and Izuku looked up at a figure standing over him. His eyes widened in disbelief, joy, excitement and a bit of fear. Geez, kid. You okay? The blood hero. Vlad King stared down at him. Izuku stammered a wordless mumble. You were staring out at space. Test is starting. Why you're Vlad King. Yeah, and we're trying to start the. Oh my gosh, you're Vlad King, you're the blood hero. Izuku gasped as he brought his hands up to his mouth. He loved meeting heroes, especially those he'd never thought he'd meet. Your fight against the Plasmoid Party in your first month as a full-fledged pro hero was amazing, even if it was overshadowed by a puff piece for Puff Man. Your most famous feat was when you single-handedly stopped the robbery of an AIDS charity event. Not to mention your contributions to the anti-quirkism movement and your published papers on such views. Thank you kid. The large hulking man looked honestly flattered. He gave Izuku a toothy grin and nodded to his right. Still, the test is starting. Best get to the lineup young man. Oh, no. The test. Izuku blanched and hurried off to line up. He doubled back and bowed quickly. "Thank you for reminding me, sir." He hurried off to the lineup of students, with a white and red-haired boy on his left and a vine-haired girl on his right. There was an open space on the white and red-haired boy's other side. Was there an anticipated sixth? Were they waiting for them still or? Hero prospects. Vlad King's voice carried over the field from an overview catwalk above the track starting line. Beside him was a traffic light hovering in place. Today's test is not just a physical one, so be sure to use all aspects of your quirk as you best see fit. Once the buzzer sounds, you will begin. Ready? Izuku prepared himself, his emerald aura brightened as he waited until the green light struck. His ring flashed as he willed forth the flames and shot from the starting point. He was off like a fighter jet, emerald flames burning behind him. He had to plan a defense, just in case someone tried to attack him while he was in the air. Thankfully, the first open stretch of kilometer was his to take, so he had plenty of time to theorize and strategize. As was the kilometer after that. Surely someone had to be gaining on him by now. He couldn't risk looking back, though. He'd initiate his plan in the final stretch. First place, Izuku Midori, a robotic voice sounded along with a buzzer as he passed over a stretch of land. Eh? Izuku blinked and caught the flame constructs so that he could land. That was it. Where were all the death-defying traps? The laser fire. What about being reminded he was a poozer? Is there a second test? He asked, more to himself than anyone else, since no one appeared to be listening. The revelation wasn't surprising, nor was it a new one. Second place, Momo Yaoi Arozu, the computer called out a minute later. Izuku looked to see the tall dark-haired girl that was with Tokage, calmly getting off of a scooter. Then came the subsequent other announcements. Third place, Ibara Shiozaki. Fourth place, Satsuna Tokage. Fifth place, Shoto Todoroki. Todoroki? Wait, as in that Todoroki? Izuku looked at the boy, surprised to see the heterochromatic boy was glaring at him. He flinched back. What did he do? Wait, his fire stream was based off of Endeavor's, and that was Endeavor's son. He just beat Endeavor's son with a borderline copy of his father's quirk. Yeah, I guess I'd glare at me, too. Shoto. Izuku jumped at the explosive yell and instinctively made a shield around himself while he held his arms up over him. A second passed before he peeked out through his arms. The other finalists were staring at him. He dropped his shield and almost did the same with his costume. He started to find his ring very interesting and tried to ignore all the looks that came his way. It didn't work. Yamo, remember that I called dibs. Tokage grinned as she pointed at the girl that got second place. You can have the candy cane snack. Huh? What do you mean? What is dibs? Why would I want a candy cane? Wow. Okay, I've said it before and I'll say it again. You need help. I'm giving you my cell number. Oh really? Thank you. Izuku didn't understand, but good for Yaoi Rozu. He shook his head and looked down at his ring again. Power ring, charge remaining. Ring power. 87%. That wasn't too bad. Izuku was sure he'd burn through half the charge with this test today. Still, now he could mess around with his quirk and work on his more offensive moves. He'd have to rent out a quirk gym for him to use so he could do so without issue. And get his mother to agree to let him go train. Thanks for watching guys, make sure to leave a like, share and subscribe. Also don't forget to check out author of this story. All details in description.